My name is Estefana Gutierrez. Here is what I would like you to remember about me. I was born on September 2, 1898 in Ciudad Canatlan, Mexico, and baptized on October 19, 1898 in San Diego de Alcala, Ciudad Canatlan. My parents were Susano Graciano, who was born about May 1850, in La Sauceda, Ciudad Canatlan, and Maria Gutierrez, who was born April 20, 1866, in Ciudad Canatlan. I had 4 brothers and sisters, Carmen, Josefa, Guadalupe and Federico, and 6 half-siblings, Zeferino, Secundina, Cipriano, Carlotta, Carmen and Miguel. We grew up in an area that had a lot of scorpions. I remember that as a small child, my mother would sweep clean an area of the ground near the house to remove any leaves, rocks, and other debris. She would then dip a rope in kerosene and form it into a circle on the clean ground, then put me in it with something to play with to keep me safe from them. We had a very hard life in Mexico, and I remember my mom taking in laundry, mending and sewing to provide for us. At the age of 14, I began working in a drugstore owned by a family friend, until it had closed about 2 years later. I was then offered a setup at her storefront by the drugstore owner's mother. I emigrated from Canatlan to El Paso, Texas on January 30, 1916 and stayed with my brother Zeferino and his wife for a while, until his job transferred him to Pennsylvania. I stayed behind and had found work as a live-in maid and companion for a wealthy widow, who was very kind and good to me. Soon, I met Jose Rodriguez and had my first child, Maria, who went by Marie. She was born March 13, 1920 in El Paso. It was here in El Paso that I met my husband and the love of my life, Frank Smith, who was born Karl George Franz Heinrich Maximilian Caesar, to Conrad Adam Karl Caesar and Philippine Charlotte Becker-Bahn on June 23, 1873 in Wiesbaden, Germany. He was a carpenter by trade, but at the time was working as a cook for the Santa Fe Railroad. Together we had 3 children. We had our daughter Anna on December 17, 1921, here in El Paso. Soon after, we moved out to Los Angeles, California. On February 16, 1924, we had our son Charles Caesar, who went by Charlie, in Los Angeles. In March of 1924, we bought a lot in the Wood Gardens subdivision of Los Angeles County and lived in a tent while Frank built our family home. He built the house on the back of the lot, so that the front could be covered in fruit trees and gardens. He also built a fish pond with a fountain to irrigate the gardens. Frank and I were officially married on October 20, 1925 in South Gate, Los Angeles. In 1926, Frank entered a Best-Kept Lawn and Gardens contest and won first place. With the money from the contest, we were able to get a bathtub, toilet and hot water heater for the house. We had our last child, a daughter, Frida on August 26, 1927 in Los Angeles. By 1928, Frank had fallen very ill from tuberculosis that he had contracted in the Philippines years back while in the army. He was in and out of the veterans' home and was unable to work. It was at this time that I needed to go back to work to support the family. I once again became a domestic, cleaning homes. As I didn't drive, I had to take the bus to get to my clients' homes. I worked long 12 to 13 hours shifts that included my travel time. On April 23, 1935, I had received a telegram that my husband died in the Sawtell Veterans Hospital of far advanced tuberculosis that day. I only had 40 cents in cash at the time of my husband's death, and without the generosity of the VFW taking up a collection to provide us with groceries, I don't know what we would have done. Shortly after, I was introduced to Bethel Community Church, and this is when I became a Christian. My daughter Anna married William Samuel Steinman, who went by Sam, on August 24, 1940 in South Gate, and had 4 children, Dave, Bill, Judy and Linda. Later on, she married Bert Henry Brinkley on January 24, 1964, in Downey. My daughter Marie married Merlin Wesley Hedden on November 6, 1942 in Southgate, and had 3 children, David, John and Lori. My son Charlie married Geraldine Johnson on March 19, 1943 and had 4 children, Jerry, Sharon, Jim and Susan. I promised my husband before he passed that I would get my citizenship, and on January 14, 1944, I became a citizen of the United States. On October 25, 1946, my youngest daughter Frida married Richard Frank Hunt-Rods, who went by Dick, and they had 2 children, Rick and Rob. Wednesday night prayer meetings were always held in my home, and everyone was welcome. On August 5, 1965, my son died in a terrible car accident that wasn't far from our home. In fact, I had heard the sirens, and as a mother, knew they were for my son. As the family grew larger, family holidays were a time for getting together at my home. I just loved being with family, and they were my biggest joy. I'll never forget the day of October 23, 1972, that was the day that my house was painted by all of my grandchildren and their families. It was a joyous day indeed. Here I am with my 3 girls after church on Mother's Day. Not only did my 3 daughters attend our church, that was later Grace Bible Church, a new congregation that some of us followers had formed, but so did their entire extended family. I passed away on March 25, 1980 in Southgate of terminal pneumonia due to kidney cancer and multiple metastases and fractures, and I'm buried at Rose Hills Memorial Park, in Whittier, California, if you'd like to visit me there. A lifetime full of memories that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. With 4 children, 13 grandchildren, and 19 great-grandchildren at the time of my death, and I'm sure there were more after. God is good.